Quazi here. So recently, I was listening to JRE with an episode from Cat Williams. He mentioned the Emerald Tablet and the true origin of all religion.
Great Pyramid of Giza is insane.
Right.
It's insane.
Like, even Tesla says that this is where he came to get the information. But if you follow that information pathway, it leads you to this character called Thoth, right? And the Emerald Tablets of Thoth are literally mind-changing and mind-blowing, just because you understand when this was written and the terminology being used is
When was it written?
far too accurate for now. So
Now, in my journey, I've always tried to go deep to identify the true source of all ancient teachings, especially of different religions like Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, knowledge from secret societies like Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, and the like. Then I came across this book by this gentleman by the name of William Hawke, who spoke about the true source of all powerful ancient knowledge, the Emerald Tablet. In his book, this is how the Emerald Tablet is described. It is a precious stone like an emerald, whereon these characters are represented in bas-relief, not engraved. It is esteemed above 2,000 years old. The matter of this emerald had once been in a fluid-like state, like melted glass, and had been cast in a mold, and to this flux, the artist had given the hardness of the natural and genuine emerald by his art. What's even more mysterious is the author of this tablet, Thoth, who is known as Hermes Trismegistus. Now, the term Trismegistus quite literally translates to thrice greatest, which shows his mastery over all three planes of existence: physical, mental, and spiritual. Upon studying Hawke's work, everything started to make more sense. The origins of all teachings. It is said that modern religions have literally originated from the teachings of the Emerald Tablet. Gnosticism, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, Buddhism, and even ancient yogic knowledge, all attributed to this one being, Hermes Trismegistus. What's even more interesting is that this Hermes Trismegistus is said to have had 3 incarnations. The first being Thoth, who Jewish mystics actually likened to Seth, the second child of Adam and Eve. And Thoth is also known as the Atlantean, is also said to have had godlike powers, invented hieroglyphics, the first ever method of record keeping. According to an ancient record, the Ebers Papyrus, a 68-foot long scroll on alchemy, the oldest book in the world, Thoth taught humans how to become gods and is the initiator of human enlightenment. The second incarnation of Hermes Trismegistus was an ancient Egyptian god-king known as Akhenaten, who lived in 1300 BC and arrived shortly after the Great Flood. It is said that Akhenaten rediscovered the Emerald Tablet at the beginning of his rule as pharaoh, and that without him, the pyramids would not have been built. He was known as the heretic pharaoh and created the first monotheistic religion in worshipping the sun god. The third and final incarnation of Hermes Trismegistus was this being known as Balinus, who lived in the same era as Jesus himself, during 15 AD onwards. He is commonly referred to as Apollonius of Tyana, or the pagan Jesus. Balinus is said to have discovered the Emerald Tablet in a cave, where it was actually hidden by Alexander the Great on his way to Mesopotamia. Legend has it that Balinus spent the rest of his life mastering the contents of the Emerald Tablet and accomplished immense feats like influencing kings, escaping otherwise inescapable situations like imprisonment and chains by literally morphing his body. Balinus taught that just as the one thing, the divine source, exists in the universe, so it is mirrored in each of us and exists as the soul, which evolves through reincarnations as it seeks perfect expression. Man is only a temporary carrier of something with a much greater purpose. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the 3 main laws that show up consistently throughout the teachings of the original Emerald Tablet, and how you can use it to create the life that you want through full realization of these teachings. Let's get started. I encountered a book called The Kybalion back in 2017, which was written by the 3 initiates, particularly William Walter Atkinson, a gentleman who's written many personal development books. But I was initially very disappointed because I found out that this book wasn't actually the true teachings of the Emerald Tablet, but it was a rehash, reformulated in their own interpretations, and there was no original reference to the teachings itself. So that set me on a journey to finding out the true translation of the Emerald Tablet, which is what we're going to discuss today, the three main laws that recur throughout. But what was interesting for me, though, was when I learned about the Kybalion and the mysterious character Hermes Trismegistus, I took it to heart and I said, okay, maybe this is the truth, because I didn't know anything else. I started applying them and my life completely changed. Now when I'm studying it, I see commonalities between some of the laws, the 7 laws that were presented in the Kybalion, and the 3 laws that recur throughout from that one paragraph of translation that I'm about to share with you. The very first takeaway that I had was that there are 3 planes of existence. There is what's known as the physical plane, what's known as the mental plane, and finally what's known as the spiritual plane. It is the spirit that manifests itself in the mental and physical. The one thing manifests itself into one mind, and everything is contained within what's known as the all. Just like Muslims call it Allah, Christians, Jewish call it God. This God figure, Godhead, ideal figure, everything is contained within the all. Hermetic teachings don't like to look at a monotheistic God. It's more like non-personifying God, because once you personify God, you label God, you give God human-like qualities. It's preferred in Hermetic traditions to not label God, even though the second incarnation of Hermes Trismegistus, Akhenaten, actually tried to put forward a monotheistic religion. He still didn't label it God, merely looked at the sun as a god. And the oldest translation is actually a translation from Balinas, which goes back to this Arabic book called, I'm going to grossly mispronounce it, it's called Kitab Sir al-Halika, which translates, I believe, to the Book of Secrets. In this book, there is one main passage, which is supposedly the most direct translation that can be found. So I'm going to read this passage out to you. Truth, certainty, that in which there is no doubt. That which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above, working the miracles of one thing, as all things were from one. Its father is the sun, and its mother the moon. The earth carried it in her belly, and the wind nourished it in her belly. As earth, we shall become fire. Feed the earth from that which is subtle. With the greatest power, it ascends from the earth to the heaven and becomes ruler over that which is above and that which is below. I want you to really read this a couple of times to see what sticks out to you. And now let's get to the 3 main laws that this book puts forth. The very first law right from this passage is the mention of as above, so below. The above came from the below and the below came from the above. It basically mentions that our world is dual. Have you ever wondered why spiritual teachers always speak in dualities? It's because they understand that the nature of this world is dual. It's yin and yang, hot and cold, light and dark. Everything is manifested into 2 different poles. That's the illusory world, which shows us the opposites, shows us contradictions every single day. Why? Because this illusory world is always subject to change. You'll notice in society, political parties will go from a democratic to republican, back to democratic, back to republican. It's always ideologies of basically going from one end to the next. One day someone believes in this, a few years later it goes to the extreme end, then comes back to balance for a very short period of time and then goes back to the extreme end. So everything is in a state of flux. That's why these ancient Eastern teachers have always talked about going beyond the veil of Maya. Pierce the veil of Maya, go beyond the illusion. Find that which is permanent in this constant state of impermanence. So duality is always in a state of evolving, okay? It's in a state of flux, meaning it's always undergoing change. And for me, this was absolutely crucial to understand, because I would find that maybe just like you, I have periods of ruts in my life, okay, where I get stuck, I don't feel inspired or motivated, and I keep experiencing the same Groundhog Day.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
It doesn't matter where you are in your life, how wonderful it is. If you feel stuck, you're stuck. As human beings, we always want to grow and we want to evolve and become better every single day. And if you keep staying stuck at a certain place, well, then you're going to call it a prison, right? You could be in the most wonderful prison, but it's still going to be a prison if you're not expanding boundlessly. When I started to see that I was stuck, the only thing that would get me unstuck, and this is what's crucial, was when I was asking, what am I holding on to? What is trying to evolve, but I'm holding on to that idea? And I remember in my business, when I was stuck, It's because I kept insisting on running ads when ads weren't working for me, when ads weren't the right thing to do. So I had to switch one day when I came to this epiphany that I'm really holding on to ads because someone told me that this was the right way to go. And so I said, okay, what if I just took the funds that I allocated to ads and actually go into organic, something that's already working for me? And that wasn't a proven pathway. There's so many times in our lives we think, this is it, this has to work, this is the proven pathway. But typically when we're trying to follow a proven path that someone else sets out for us, well, it's not our own individual path. It's worked for them, but doesn't mean it's necessarily going to exactly work for us. We can take bits and pieces, the principles of excellence, and evolve with it, but we're being too static. We're holding on to something that we have to let go of. You have to let go of life. This duality is always evolving and becoming something new. In this journey of evolution, who am I becoming? Am I holding on to ideas that are no longer serving me because it has allowed me to become successful in the past? Something that's gotten you from 1 to 10 is not necessarily going to get you from 10 to 100. So you have to become open-minded and inquisitive to ask, what is the right path for me? I know that's a little bit esoteric, but I really want you to think about it. In any area of your life that you feel stuck right now, what false idea are you holding on to that keeps attracting the same in your life? What are you struggling to let go of that is keeping on the same Groundhog Day happening again and again? Just ask this simple question. When I started to ask myself this question in any single area of my life what I am holding on to that's keeping me stuck, the answers naturally come. The quality of your life is not proportional to the answers that you have, but it's directly proportional to the quality of questions that you ask yourself. And this was one of the most important laws for me that I realized, that I actually learned from the Kybalion, and surprise, it pops up in this oldest translation as well, as above, so below. Everything is a reflection. What is the image you are presenting to the mirror? Because remember, the mirror won't smile before you do. I have to consciously change what I'm presenting to the mirror of reality if I would like to see a change happen outside. So this was one of the most fundamental laws that made a biggest shift for me, which leads me to understanding that thing that is permanent within the impermanent. The second part to this, the law of awareness. And when we go back to the passage, it's the very first line. Truth, certainty, that in which there is no doubt. What do you think that's referring to? What is it within us that is absolutely certain? There is no doubt about that existence. There is doubt whether you are what you call yourself. There is actually doubt if I'm Quazi or I was born in this place. These are all memory. Memory, it can always lie to us, right? So right now in this moment, yes, I identify as this person called Quazi, but that could change. In this moment, I see my body as this, but that could change. My cells are decaying. It's not forever. This body is going to pass. But within me, what is it that will never pass? What is it within me that always was, is, and always will be? And this is what's known as awareness. Within you, there is a quality of awareness, a quality of witnessing and watching that has always been there when you're 4 years old, that is right now, and will likely stay the same when you turn 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, because it's beyond time. Time doesn't affect it. It is a step removed from space-time. So the ancient yogis call this awareness because it's sort of formless, right? When awareness takes on a form, localizes itself, we call it mind, or you can say, I'm conscious. Where does this consciousness go when you're asleep? Consciousness is no longer there. You are unconscious. Even consciousness is dual. What is beyond consciousness? That awareness. That awareness is always there. We just don't know how to tap into it when we're asleep. That awareness is always present. And very famous sages like Sri Ramana Maharshi, there's a very profound book that I read back in around 2020, 2021, Who Am I by Sri Ramana Maharshi. It's a very small book, around 30, 40 pages. In it, he gives you a direct method to go beyond this identity, beyond mind and body. In the physical plane, we have the body. In the mental plane, we have the mind. In the spiritual plane, we have that which is beyond mind and body, which is what? Awareness. Pure, formless, boundless awareness. When you can stay as awareness and purely just be the witnessing, just think about it this way. There is a particular identity that I'm embodying as I'm making this video. But if I go beyond this identity, I can watch the Quazi that I believe myself to be making this video. But if I can watch that thing, therefore I am not it. If I can watch my thoughts and observe my thoughts, therefore there is a separation between what is watching and the thought itself. Therefore, I am not a thought. I am not the thought that I'm thinking. In my body, I can feel a feeling. but there is a watching of that feeling. I know this is getting a little bit tricky to understand, but there's an observation, a witnessing, a watching. So there is a space between that which is watching and the feeling itself. Therefore, I can say that I am not the feeling. But even then, there is a watching of the watching itself. Therefore, I'm not even the watching. I'm that which is beyond. I simply am. There is. I can say, the only thing I can say for sure is that there is some form of existence. I'm not this and that, but only when I remove the clouds can the sun shine forth. When I remove false ideas that I have about myself, then I can see my true self. It's kind of like you have a pond which is dead still. You won't know that there is a pond until there are ripples within the pond. So just like our mind, we don't know that there is awareness until we completely remove all of these ripples. We can't function as awareness until we remove the ripples within the awareness. We can step beyond it. Another analogy I can give you is, if I have a lot of things in the foreground, my focus, my attention gets directed to the things in the foreground. I can't notice the vast background, the sky. I'm focused on the individual clouds, the individual thoughts, my pains, my desires. Those are the things I can focus on. This is a very, very deep Eastern yogic method known as self-inquiry. The path of the intellect, where you go beyond mind and you just keep going beyond more and more until you can fully rest as awareness. And this will have profound implications for your life, because you will no longer be the same. You will no longer be affected by anything that happens outside of you. You're going to be completely imperturbable. And this is something I've been practicing for the last 3 years that's allowed me to consciously show up as the version of myself that I want to show up as, rather than unconsciously show up as the version that I thought I have to be. So understand that it is the formless that takes on form. The key to understanding this method, to going beyond all thought, is to simply watch at every single moment whatever is arising, and allow it to arise. This thought arises, that too has permission to exist. It is okay for it to exist, but it is not me. I simply watch it and observe it. So I simply ask, to whom does this thought occur? Well, the answer is simple, it's me. Well, then the question then becomes, who is this me? Who am I? The point of this exercise isn't to blindly answer the questions, because that's initially what you're going to be doing, right? You're just going to try to answer the questions, be like, oh, I'm this Quazi person, and I was born in Bangladesh, and I'm brown, and blah, 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 like your characteristics you identify with yourself. But then you ask, what's even beyond that? Is that really me? Who really am I? And that's when you start to get to the crux of it. You start to get to the root of this whole being. And the root of this being is the root of all beings, which is that air outside the bubble. I encourage you to try that, because I did this and I still do this for over 3 years, and it's just gotten to a point where I'm less and less affected by what happens outside. And when your internal is less and less affected by what happens outside, you become a very powerful creator of your reality, because you're no longer disturbed and influenced by what people are saying, what others are doing. You find your own true, unique way. You connect to your heart. Okay, so I encourage you to follow this law of awareness that's completely changed my life. That book is really going to help you, but it's sufficient for you to simply ask these 2 questions. Observe thought. To whom does this arise? Who am I? Which actually leads me to the 3rd and final law that we see throughout this passage in the Emerald Tablet. The law of transmutation. There's a very, very direct mention of it throughout, where it says, the earth carried it in her belly, and the wind nourished it in her belly, as earth which shall become fire. That which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above, working the miracles of one thing, as all things were from one. The earth carried it in her belly, and the wind nourished it in her belly, as earth which shall become fire. So you can see there is a transmutation of states. And that's because back in the day, the highest form of reward you could achieve was through alchemy. And the goal of alchemy was to transmute base metal, lead, into gold. But in the Emerald Tablet, the base metal into gold was actually a euphemism, a metaphor for transmuting this internal power into much higher riches, into enlightenment, into transmuting our being and reaching the highest levels, like Balinus did, which allowed him these secret powers to influence, to achieve miraculous feats. There's no power kind of like that. So in understanding that, we have to understand what the philosopher's stone is that Hermes Trismegistus was referring to, or Thoth, whoever wrote the Emerald Tablet. The philosopher's stone that allows you to transmute base metal into gold, that is the internal equivalent that we all possess within us, is the power of imagination. So what you've got to understand is was a safeguard to prevent people from falling into dogmatic ideas, because society will always try to convince you and shut down your imagination, because imagination is what allows us to break free, right? Even Einstein had this quote that it's imagination that runs the whole world. Once we lose imagination, once we lose our own creative path, we are doomed. We are subject to someone else's diction of how our lives should go. So the one thing that I've tried to do throughout my whole journey, the one method that I've always focused on, is the act of visualization. When I visualize my ideal scene every single day. When I first started off on this journey, I would visualize waking up in a mansion in LA next to the woman of my dreams, with my red Ferrari, and what life looks like after I've accomplished everything. And this was when I was dead broke. I had not a penny to my name, and I was doing a full-time 9-to-5 job. 4 years later, we have a multi-million-dollar business, the mansion, everything, beautiful baby, beautiful wife. All of this happened because I consistently visualized that. I use the power of creative imagination. Like, people don't understand how powerful this is. It's the act of creative visualization. Use your imagination, connect the thought to the feeling. When the thought and the feeling are harmonized together, the mind and the heart come together, we master all three planes, right? Because for most people, the heart is very, very silent, because the mind said, you should want this and you should want that, you should want the promotion, you should want to make more money. And then you get to, towards the end of your life and you realize, oh my God, I did everything from such a place of I should want this, and I only did it because people told me to do it. I never really wanted it. I gritted my teeth through it throughout my whole life. And then they wake up with this pang of regret. That's not something I recommend for anyone, not even my worst enemy. Because you stuff your heart in a box and it gets very, very difficult to take it out of the box. It takes a lot of untraining, retraining yourself to get this heart out of the box and to listen to the heart and what it's saying. So a lot of people are afraid to follow their intuitive guidance because they think there is some proven method out there, like we mentioned earlier. But in reality, there is no proven method for you. You are creating your proven method when you trust yourself. That is the only proven method. The only proven method is the one that you create for yourself. So you should always, at all times, strive to follow your own unique path. Always pick things that resonate with you, things you feel called to, because then you're listening to the intuitive yearnings of your heart. But at other times, be very, very on alert when something might be uncomfortable, and that's actually a good sign, means you're expanding your comfort zone. But if it makes you just switch off, you're not excited and nervous about it, then it's not worth it. The true things in life that are worth pursuing are the things that make you uncomfortable, but at the same time you know you have to do it. It's the right thing to do. This uncomfortable thing is the right thing to do. But the difference between that and the wrong thing to do is it's uncomfortable, but at the same time it just doesn't make sense to do. Like, you can't see any good reason why you should do something. Those are the ones you should avoid. So to summarize this, practice any form of creative work. I recommend doing creative visualization in creating the life that you want, but also when I make these videos, I get into that creative zone. Because when we channel our inner creativity, we're actually channeling God. God is that ultimate creative entity, that creative being. So what I've gone and done is made a complete guide on visualization. It's like a 30-40 minute long video, which actually has a 7 or 8 page guide at the end of it, completely free for you to access. You can click right here. It's a comprehensive video I made around 2 months ago. A lot of people have been loving it, gotten around 350,000 views on it. We make these videos because my mission is to help every single human being on earth to master their destinies, in hopes that this can help you too. So go ahead and check that out, and I will see you in the comments section of that video right now. Thanks.